Hello, Alaskans! It's voting day. Have you gone out and voted yet? We are here for another day of making sure that the swamp of Alaska gets drained. As you can see to my right here, there is the arrow directional telling you where to go and vote out here in the Big Lake area at the Big Lake Lions Club. I am standing in front of a Loy Thurman's sign here and Kevin McCabe. They are both standing over there waiting for you to just pull right on in, ask them a bunch of questions. If you don't know who they are, it's your opportunity to get out here and introduce yourself. Down the street that direction, we got Stephen Wright, depends on how you pronounce things, and he is also there waiting for you to just stop on in and ask him a few questions. This is one election that you do not want to be missing out on. This primary election is critical, very critical, that we get the people, the right people, voted into office this year and drain the Alaskan swamp that we have. Deep state, dark money has been flooded in over the last 2 weeks. We're talking close to $200,000 has been introduced into Alaska from outside PACs that have put money into elections of certain legislators out there. They are terrified that we are going to make sure us Alaskans vote them out. They don't want that to happen. They are absolutely terrified that will happen. They're hoping that people like Senator Cathy Giessel, who promises to be a protector of our PFD, who sits on the Senate as the president, who has knowingly and willingly signed into law for year after year to take our permanent fund dividend away. These people belong to what we like to call the Illegal Binding Caucus. The Illegal Binding Caucus is a document. It's a document that they sign at the beginning of their very first session. We're entering into the legislative session of the 32nd one. Last year was the 31st. In the 31st, we had the Illegal Binding Caucus that turned what we have as our permanent fund dividend from a statutory formula that is now dependent upon tax revenue to even pay us. Yes, you heard that right. They use tax revenue to pay our permanent fund. It is no longer a transfer from the earnings reserve account as it has been for 35 plus years. Once they got a hold of it, they said, hey, we want it all to spend for government. It no longer belongs to the people of Alaska. Then you got people that don't show up for being in Juneau to actually represent their people. And that's the reason why we've got Kevin McCabe running in this year's election. He is here to unseat the incumbent that has missed well over almost 200 votes in just the last couple of years, that hasn't been there to represent us. We don't need to be sending people back that are a part of the swamp back to Juneau. You got other races out there. You got L.D. Howard that is currently running for in the district against Rauscher. Rauscher is bought and paid for by the swamp. Just a second ago, I was describing how we've had out-of-state money that has come into our elections that are influencing our elections to make sure the same swamp gets reelected. Once they realized that L.D. Howard had a chance of actually unseating the incumbent during the primary elections, they flooded over $20,000 into his opponent's campaign, George Rauscher's campaign, to try to get him reelected. If you haven't caught my article about convicts and coin flips, part 1, convicts and coin flips, part 2, Carmen's Cabal, or convicts and coin flips, part 3, Jesse Sumner, please look them all up. We've got a recall that was started against Summer because he has basically been spewing nothing but lies out there. That deep state money that I was describing, they flooded a 20 grand into his election to try to make sure to unseat David Eastman. Why do they want to get rid of David Eastman? Number one reason, David's too conservative for them. They don't want a legislator that doesn't want to sign into the Illegal Binding Caucus. They want people that are going to sell out your votes, our votes, once they get elected and get into Juneau. They want people that are easily moldable, usable, can completely convince them that they are the only reason why they need to be in Juneau to represent us, because they want to work for the special interests of Alaska. If you haven't, or if you are not following Senator Mike Shower's representative page, please go sign up, become a friend of his, start looking at all the videos that he has made and all the times he has come out and rallied against the binding caucus rule. The illegal binding caucus is what got us into this destructive mess that Alaska is in right now. It is the only reason why we do not have our statutory PFD. This year we had a stimulus that was supposed to have been $1,000 added into our permanent fund to be able to give to us early. And then just right about now, just about next month, we're supposed to be seeing our permanent fund dividend from normal. But Governor Dunleavy, because they stripped that stimulus back out, said that Alaskans need help. We're desperate out here. We're dying. Our families are no longer being able to pay their rent. They can't pay their house bills. We're losing our businesses. And these legislators out there think that it's funny. Yes, I seriously think they think this is funny, that we are losing everything. What do they care? Collecting over $30,000 to $50,000 in per diem on top of their $50,000 salary, $100,000 a year to do what? To go to Juneau, to represent the special interests. They don't represent Alaskans, they represent the special interests. Recall Dunleavy. I'm going to throw you guys under the bus. Every single person that is involved with Recall Dunleavy is a part of the special interest. We've got the Rasmussen Foundation. We got Alaska AFL-CIO, the Unions of Alaska. We got NEA Alaska, SERI. The list is endless. You name the nonprofit organization that is out there, they are the swamp that is spending the money of Alaska. They don't care how much they spend. They know they got our permanent fund dividend to use. That's the reason why they're flooding all this money into their elections and their campaigns right now. Senator Natasha von Imhoff has Stephen Duplantis running against her. If I lived in her district, I would be voting for Duplantis all day long. Why would I vote for him? Because he's not going to be joining the illegal binding caucus. He is here to work for the constituents, us Alaskans that he represents. He's somebody that's there for us. Who is Senator Natasha von Imhoff? Well, ironically enough, her family owns the Rasmussen Foundation. You know, the one that's been receiving the bulk of our money every single year during our budget cycle, House Bill 2005 state and capital budget that they passed this year. Yes, that budget right there was crafted and handled by Senator Natasha von Imhoff. Who is she again? She is the daughter of the Rasmussen Foundation. She sits on the board of the directors of the Rasmussen Foundation. Rasmussen Foundation received directly from our state $75 million to distribute throughout all the nonprofits of Alaska. Meanwhile, us businesses that are struggling to try to keep our doors open, especially if you're in Anchorage, you right now are facing bankruptcy. You haven't been able to open up your doors. Windows are boarded and shuttered up. Out of business signs are everywhere. You go and drive through downtown Anchorage, it is a ghost town. Unless you go to G Street, where all the special interests that belong to the Berkowitz family and his partners have flooded in money and closed off streets and made sure that they are surviving through this. Meanwhile, the rest of us bend over. I got no other better way to describe it. So, again, this is the day to get out and vote. It is August 18th. You can vote up all the way until, I believe, 8 o'clock tonight, maybe 9 o'clock, somewhere in there. I'm not too sure on that, but I know it's up until at least 8 o'clock at night. Get out there and go vote. This is one primary. You can't sit at home and expect that other people are going to elect the right people for you. They are counting on this. The swamp is counting on you sitting at home. They don't want you to share this video. They want you to forget all about everything that's going on in our elections. They would prefer you to just be the silent majority that silently sits on your asses and does absolutely nothing to change our elections here in Alaska. The illegal binding caucus that we have Like I said, they have flooded in tons of money into the swamp. They're making sure that money is being distributed, and you're hearing it on the radio advertisements right now. I cannot watch a video that comes from like Fox News, just to throw them out there, that doesn't have a Jesse Sumner ad in it. That man right now has spilled so many lies about David Eastman trying to get himself elected, and they threw $20,000 in the last 2 weeks from the swamp from Washington into his campaign. It is just absolutely disgusting. They did the same thing with George Rauscher against L.D. Howard. L.D. Howard, I wish and I hope that he makes it to Juneau. He is one person that will be working for Alaskans. You can hear a lot of support. I can tell you what, when it comes to the elections and the polls out there today, coming in and talking to the poor workers just for a little bit, for what they're allowed to actually say to me, some of these folks, I see them every single year inside of there. They're here again this year, wearing their PPE supplies, making sure everybody's got a clean pen, making sure everybody's got a clean cover sheet for their ballot. They're doing hand wiping downs of everything. They're social distancing. Everybody's 6 feet apart throughout the entire thing. They are making sure that our election and our polling places are open and that you can get out and vote. This mail by vote thing that they want to do is just outright outrageous. I'm glad Alaska did not leap on board and try to do something as stupid as what they're doing in the lower 48. We have 111% of the population, voting population of Alaska on our voting rolls. Just imagine if they sent out a ballot to every single person sitting here in Alaska that's on that registry. Again, 111% we have here in Alaska on our voting rolls. Think about how many dead, how many people that have moved. We've already been reported that we've had another 2,000 to 3,000 people are packing their bags right now and already left our state. They're telling us we're going to have 11,000 people by 2021 in January. 11,000 people just in Anchorage out of jobs. What do you think this is going to do to our economy? We are literally decimated. If you were to take those numbers and multiply them and imagine $5,000 a month per person out of those 11,000 people, you're getting into the multi-millions that are missing from our economy that used to be there. If you take it and you remember that Alaska, for every dollar that us, me, you spend in Alaska, gets spent 7 times. Every single time you go and spend $1 in Alaska, it will be used 7 more times within our communities before it makes it back into the government's hands once again. 7 times. That is roughly, with just those 11,000 people that are losing their jobs in Anchorage, $3 billion that is going to be missing from the Alaska economy. And the swamp out there is hoping that you do not do nothing to change the dynamics in Juneau. They're going to be imposing a sales tax, an income tax. They already are making announcements that they're planning on taking the entire PFD this year, and we won't see one next October. That has been their intention since day one. I rally on this all the time. I talk about their HB 300, HB 306, the bicameral PFD groups, PFD-Budget tool that they have, pinned to the top of my page since last year. That post is not going to leave until we get rid of those in the swamp that are completely destroying Alaska for us. Yes, they are destroying Alaska. They could care less about us. Senator Natasha von Imhoff, when they had first voted to give us that $1,000 of what they had stolen last year, and the meager $1,000 that they were going to give us of the $3,000 they owe us this year, she immediately called for an amendment to have that removed so that it didn't happen. Fortunately, senators did just get enough votes to continue that on. But when the final bill went before the House and the Senate and they combined them together, Senator Natasha von Imhoff, John Coghill, Bert Stedman, Senator Cathy Giessel, Bryce Edgman, you name the list that sits anywhere in the top echelon of the House or the Senate, made sure that they were under direct orders to completely strip that stimulus right back out of the package. How well is that working for you, my fellow Alaskans? I'll tell you what, I sure do feel like I've been bent over, and they didn't bother to give me any grease when they got done. They just rammed it right on in and said, guess what? You live with the cost. I'm here today in Big Lake. I am just driving by. I just went and voted. I went and casted my vote. I posted a couple of pictures on it a little bit earlier today. Don't hesitate to share. Contact 5 of your friends. Call them up. Tell them to show up. Go out and vote. Ask them if they need a ride. Don't hesitate. Go and pick them up. Bring them to the polls. It's safe. Masks are provided when you come walking in the door. If you don't have a mask and you want a mask, they are more than willingly going to give you one and say, here, we are giving these out for your protection if you feel you need one. Get out and vote, Alaska. This primary, I normally don't get this wound up when it comes time for election time. But this year, you got no choice. You got to get active. You got to get out there. You got to vote. Please, please, please get out and vote. Don't forget to share. Thank you.